This is Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action.
This is Mark Waid, writer of Superman Birthright.
And you're listening to the Krypton Report.
And you're listening to Krypton Report.
Up in the sky, look!
It's a bird!
It's a plane! It's the Krypton Report!
The All Things Kryptonian podcast, including Superman and Supergirl.
We discuss games, movies, cartoons, TV shows, and comics.
Find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. Welcome to the Krypton Report. This is me, or I, Tyler, and Sayla in the background, my Supergirl. And somebody's here with me. Let's see if we can tune him in. Hello, are you there? I'm reaching through the multiverse to find the champion.
Superman Red. I'm here.
It's kind of early for us. Not as early as sometimes, but it's still early on a Sunday morning. We're recording and, post daylight savings time, and everybody's in their crazy mode. So, but we're just going to jump on in and talk.
It's always rough. It always takes a week or two to catch up to that hour.
It's so weird. It's 1 hour.
Why do they even have daylight savings time anymore? Like that was created like 200 years ago.
I don't know, and I don't know why. Some places don't do it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know, bro. I don't.
Me neither.
But we're just going to jump into some news. First of all, we just hopes, thoughts, prayers to anyone affected by the going on pandemic. We bring that up just because of that. Production has stopped on Batwoman, Flash, and Supergirl, which I think are the only shows still filming. She is fired up this morning. I think Legends wrapped. Like, I think it wrapped before it aired. So
wow.
I think.
I know that they've always. I know since day one they've ran a shorter season than everybody else.
Because Brandon Routh talked about filming his last episode, which is the one that will be airing this week, like back in December, I think it was.
Oh wow.
So I think they're done. Like, they shot already, and Black Lightning just finished. Last reports I had seen was they were getting ready to shoot next month the pilot for Superman and Lois. Because of this whole pandemic thing, I missed out on my chance to meet Tyler last week. Last Sunday we were supposed to go to Cleveland, see the Siegel House, and the Schuster old space, because it's not there anymore. And I was going to get to meet Tyler, and because of this whole thing, it did not work out, and I'm really bummed about that. Because I think, one, he'd be a cool guy to meet. Two, that'd be 3 for 3. The year's not over, so I got my hopes up. And everything. I even got my hair cut Saturday last week, so I could look good to meet Tyler. That's what I joked with Jania. But we also had
Tyler to meet Tyler.
Exactly. We also, had reports recently that Supergirl season was going to be cut shorter. So I don't know with this production halt and that news what that means. And I read that if you follow in the other CW shows have been halted. Supernatural has 2 episodes left to film. Period. And and their production shutting down. And Riverdale was another one that production, because there was a crew member that actually had the virus on Riverdale.
Oh wow!
So that's, and then yesterday Variety reported that the Batman is taking 2 weeks off on production. So it's affecting everything. Not really affecting this podcast. We always have something to talk about.
We podcast from our quarantine zones and home.
Exactly.
In our fortress of solitude.
And You know, if Supergirl is on hiatus or stops, we have plenty of back catalog shows. You know, like last week we talked about the Adventures of Superman the pilot. We plan on continuing that series because it was fun. It's a cool window into a Superman before our time. You know, that is the Superman right before Chris, and Chris is pretty much everyone's jumping on point for our generation. You know, some people in our generation did jump with Dean Cain just because of the timing and everything, which makes sense. You know. It wasn't as easy to find home videos and stuff back in the day, so it makes a little sense why. So it's nice to get that little bit of George in there and see that life before. But we're gonna let's see. No real other big news. We're gonna talk about Supergirl's episode, The Bodyguard, and then we're gonna discuss something we really haven't got back into as much, but the current comics that's going on. Just because I think there's some interesting things going on. And, yeah, but James, do you have a summary for us?
I do.
So take it away, James. Take it away.
Supergirl Season 5, Episode 14, The Bodyguard. Brainy informs Lex that Leviathan's members are from the same system as Krypton, and that they need to find their version of kryptonite. Supergirl thwarts an attempt on Andrea's life, so Lex assigns her to bodyguard duty so the Obsidian platform's launch will go smoothly, while pitching this idea to Gemma as a means of keeping her people out of the way. Jean is informed of the energies that Supergirl saw during the attack and recognizes them as Chlorphyllians. Lena tests her program on Stryker's Island inmates, taking note when they develop vengeful feelings. Alex and John find evidence that takes them to an abandoned farm where a chlorophloid named Todd resides. After being rescued by Supergirl, they find Todd dead and his wife, Amy, out for revenge on Obsidian Corp after they fired Todd for his virtual reality addiction. As Alex and Jean rescue the workers, Supergirl successfully talks Amy down. With the danger averted, Andrea retrieves the Akrata medallion from her office. Lex visits Gemma to work out a deal wherein he'll get them something in exchange for meeting her people.
All right, good one. Your summary was more interesting than this episode. I will say, this episode was kind of boring. On paper, it sounds dope, like it sounds pretty neat. But even when I was watching it, I have a couple of quotes throughout in my notes here from Jania. But as we were watching it, it was kind of boring, and that's just it's kind of weird, you know. But it was just interesting. I did put in my notes just because I was checking stuff when I was reading up about just like I was trying to figure out the air dates. This is a very low IMDb rating. Usually you'll see most stuff be like in the 6s is like your median ground. You want to take a stab at what you think this IMDb might be rated?
I don't know, 6.
It was a 4.8.
Wow.
That's what I'm saying. Like this is, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. But this episode picks up. It's basically Alex's first day not working at the DEO, and it's kind of interesting, you know. Like I like that they're moving away from the DEO. I've said for a little bit I feel like the DEO has kind of run its course, and we need to change it up. We need, you know, she's going to work with John basically at his alien protective secret service department. And I like that. I like that Alex is changing up. We're shifting focus on the show from being part of the DEO constantly. And I dig it, you know? And I like the fact that they're doing this, and John's been wearing his pseudo Martian Manhunter uniform vest thingy now.
Well, did you see that that on his Twitter he posted an image of a more recognizable look that I don't think he'll be wearing that. I think that armor that he has, that body armor that he seems to be wearing, is going to change to more of a recognizable look with a green and red.
I mean, that's cool. I mean, just because like he usually has the quote unquote standard Martian looking thing when he goes full Martian Manhunter, but just for him to be wearing this every day, like as a uniform, it's nice. Just to kind of have that character in there. Just nice to see some, some actual character stuff that, like the comics, and we've seen so many changes on each of these characters. But so we have John.
It's going to be nice to see. I mean, it's been nice to see Alex, or this episode was nice to see Alex, out of the DEO. They've got to like slowly transition her away. Like she used Brainy to help her out, and I think that's something they've got to move away from. But I think she's going to. I think that they're going to go a little bit farther away from. I don't want to say procedural, but being that it was the DEO and that they had bosses to report to, government officials, and now Lex, that it'll be nice to see that aspect change.
Yeah, fade away and get away from. Just breathe new life into the show, because I feel like that's one thing the show needs. That's why I also kind of just wish Kara would leave Catco. I feel like Catco's kind of run its course. They've changed it up with Andrea Rojas. She even said it like that this episode. It killed me. She was like, Rojas. But yeah, so we have John and we have Alex, and then we get what Lena's doing. And for a second, man, when she was talking about experimenting on and needing, like, the animal testing was working, she needed to take it up for a split second. I was like,
develop a lisp there.
I did. I was like, this is how they could get Titano. I was like, this would be a really cool way to bring in, like, Titano. And then, of course, we saw that they went straight to human trials. So I was like, crap. My Titano idea went out the door quickly. But, we have this interesting conversation between Lex, and we'll just kind of follow their story real quick. We have Lex and Lena talking, and about her using obsidian, and she's talking about wanting to make people better, that she wasn't going to brainwash them, and that's what everyone thought, that she was going to make them all drones, and technically by what she's going to do is going to make them drones and take away free will, basically. But she doesn't see it that way, and it was an interesting conversation. And I wrote down here, Lex says, where is it? This is kind of paraphrasing because I couldn't write as fast as he was talking, but Superman was my downfall. I have a second chance. You're going the way that I was, to her. And it's very interesting to see if, in a lot of ways, I feel like Lex is more genuine right now with Lena. He's not playing an angle, but it is Lex Luthor, so we don't know.
Well, I mean, Lex Luthor is typically always playing an angle, but
exactly. That's why I'm like, I don't know.
the speech that he gives Lena about him trying to take on Superman and stuff like that, and the path she's going down, she really seems to take it in a more proper direction. And she also learns from the fact that when she used Myriad, that everybody was trying to think that she's trying to mind control and take over the world. So now she's just trying to eliminate the violent behaviors of people, so that the world won't need heroes. I mean, she's trying to create a utopia.
She's trying to create something that I like to call the Matrix.
Well, with Obsidian here and her, developing a form of mind control, blocking emotions, that kind of stuff. I think with the multitude of things going on here, that they are pushing like Supergirl's going to go into the Matrix.
I mean, or like, do you remember that episode of Batman, the animated series with the Riddler, where Batman and Robin pretty much go into like the Riddler's virtual game?
And is that a virtual game, or are you talking about this first appearance where they go into like his video game made live?
I just remember they put on like the helmets and everything and go in and.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure about it.
It might be the same thing.
Yeah, no, it's the one I'm thinking of is the his first. I believe it's his first episode on the animated series where there's a maze game, and
yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Okay. I don't recall if they go in, if they put on helmets or something, but I do know that like the maze is made live and they have to go through it for real to get to him.
And that's kind of what, like, I'm wondering if there's going to be something like that where Supergirl's going to have to go into, but because I feel like they could go a couple of different ways, because in juxtaposition with that, we get a really interesting speech from Doomsday. I mean, from that pseudo love interest of Kara's. I'm still calling him Doomsday, but William. And he talks about, and I'm paraphrasing here, people disconnecting from reality. And that's the whole problem with these virtual realities is it makes me think of, did you ever watch Ready Player One?
Yes.
How everyone was just obsessed with the Oasis and being in.
Yeah, they could do anything. They could be anyone, and like literally, your real life was attached to the Oasis. Like if you played and you bet everything you had, like you lost your entire livelihood. Like the guy trying to jump out the window in China or Japan.
Yeah, exactly. And then with that is just there was that movie years ago with Bruce Willis called Surrogates, where everybody basically was plugged in and had a robot surrogate that they lived through. So they were just like, it was like everybody was in their house, the physical body, but we lived our lives through our surrogate robots. Just how far can we get detached? I mean, think about when Pokemon Go came, all the jokes and people about like just on their phones walking around dronelessly chasing Pokemon or trying to catch Pokemon.
Yeah, those friggin' videos of people like flooding parks and stuff because Pokemon were there was ridiculous.
And I think
like a mob.
Pokemon Go was a cool idea, and then they tried to do something I think similar with it with Harry Potter, but But just think about those games, and then you want to put people in a digital world where whatever they want happens. You don't have to earn anything. I mean, that's just, I don't know. Like, it's just, once you make it, like, it's not like a virtual world where you can go somewhere and plug in, like a Total Recall kind of thing. But, you can do it from home. Like, why would you ever want to leave? That's the problem. For some people, their fantasy, I mean, for anyone, I think your fantasy world's always going to outweigh your real world experience. So why would you ever want to leave?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the fantasy world, it's, there's, it can be anything you want. I mean, it can be anything you want, and you can always, be happy and it can, sorry, I'm a little slow here this morning.
Fine.
Yeah, it can give you what you want. You can be what you want. You can do what you want. I mean, there's, no downside to real failure, things like that. So, and in this episode with the guy, creating a virtual world of his home planet, he was homesick and depressed. And so that was actually a really interesting thing. So there were times in this episode where I was bored, but there were other times when I thought it was, really good and handled really well. And yeah, thought provoking, like the virtual reality addiction. The fact that this character, Todd, he was, homesick, he was depressed, and he used the virtual reality as an escape. And without it, he ended up committing suicide. So, that was actually a very powerful motivation for the character here of Amy to do what she did to try and stop the Obsidian launch. But yeah, that was that's very interesting. Development of the story,
because you think of it as fantasy escapism, but then you think about people in that sense. I mean, think about what will happen, and maybe we'll see this later, if Kara gets plugged into it and she's back on Krypton. And like, we've seen this kind of thing before, with episodes where she's on Krypton, it never exploded, and she's home. There's her mom, her father, and everything. What would, Cal, how would that make her feel? Or even John, like if he's plugged into it and it's a Martian world of peace. And
right. Well, for Supergirl, it's another version. It's another way to do, the girl who has everything, which they did back, was it season one?
Season 1.
Yeah.
So exactly, like we've seen it before, but things can change. And
new network, they're like, let's do what they did, but let's use this. New stories.
Really.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think, just as a tangent here, you'd think that developing these stories for all of these characters, not just Supergirl, but all of these characters across excuse me, sorry, across the DCCW, that they would use old stories and be able to adapt old stories from even different characters, because obviously they've adapted Superman stories for Supergirl, but we were talking about Batman the Animated Series. I mean, You know, there are literally thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of DC stories from different characters that, you know, you could mine, or even if you brought in those characters into the story for a short narrative, you know, a 2-3-parter story, and added those to your seasons.
Well, speaking of, you know, other CW shows, it's interesting to watch which shows kind of connect and where. Example, we know that Kara Danvers wrote the article about Batwoman coming out, which was kind of weird and dumb at the same time, like just the way they handled her magazine cover and everything.
Yeah.
But whatever, because, you know, Batman works in the shadows. This Batwoman's more about light. Okay, that's different, you know. But why isn't, like, how come there's no mention of, like, Obsidian Tech being, like, on, just to mention, like, you would think it would be something in the conversation between Chester and Cisco, or, you know, on The Flash, you'd think that'd be something that would get dropped about, man, this new tech that's coming from, Obsidian, like, what do you know, with all these
they're on the same planet, and, like, they're not trying, as the way they're talking about it in Supergirl, they're trying to make it like a worldwide launch. Like, it's not just a national city launch.
Exactly. So, you know, you think you get, like, just an off reference. I mean, we've had off references in the other shows about stuff. You know, Black Lightning recently mentioned, before it wrapped up, Gotham City, about, you know, one of the characters about moving their operation to Gotham City.
Nice.
One of the characters going back home to his hometown of Gotham City. So, you know, we're getting that dropped. Everybody wants to drop Gotham where they can.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, crap. I'm all caught up almost on Batwoman. I have one more episode to go. I'm all caught up. And, you know, and I bring that up because there is, I don't want to spoil anything for you, but there is a discussion about a character or two that's going on Batwoman. That is, the premise they're dealing with is in reference by Cisco in The Flash about, because that was one thing I brought up to Jania as we were watching, and then I can't remember. Sayla, I know, baby. She's so excited. I wish I had her energy in the morning.
Oh my God. I know, right?
But I'm trying to remember, is there any double doppelgangers in Supergirl anymore? Because we had, like, the people in the bar.
I was going to say, I haven't seen anybody yet that I recall since Bottle episode, when there were multiple
ratings and stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what's been affected on the other shows, you know, because in the line that Cisco delivered was about, you know, there eventually could only be one, you know, and I think that's really important because with, you know, the post-crisis stuff, we need a little bit more consistency on some of the rules like we've discussed before, time travel, time race and stuff like that, with the Flash and then Legends. But, you know, their one thing was always, well, that's why the Legends had to use a time machine compared to Barry, you know, doing it himself. That's why, you know, Eobard Thawne built the time machine at the end of season 1 of Flash compared to just running back through time. But anyways, interesting stuff going on. You know, there is like this synergy amongst the shows, but at the same time, as Janine and I were watching Black Lightning the other night, you know, I mentioned to him, like, isn't this like a moment where you'd be like, yeah, just let me call my friend. Yo, Barry, can you come help me real quick? Yo, Kara, you swing in here and grab this? Same thing on an episode of Batwoman. I'm like, this is where you'd be like, hey, my friend who's completely bulletproof.
You hear that? That's the baby song.
I see the baby song. So it's just kind of that one step of, all right, they're on the same Earth, but you got to get a little creative why these characters who are so intertwined. It works in print really well, like in a comic when you're reading a comic book story, but with the TV shows, you just kind of are like, why aren't they calling on their help? So,
well, I mean, also it is, they don't, these heroes to a degree, they have like a narcissistic side where they don't want to call for help. They want to do everything themselves.
True.
I mean, the only time that they call each other for help is when it's like this planet-wide, this reality-destroying thing.
So back into our story here. There's a line that Alex says about why she'll ask help from Brainy, as she says, because he's family. And that's going to blow up in somebody's face. We see Brainy, or Quirrell, project one of the other Brainiacs from his 3 dots on his chest. We see him do that, and basically, is told that he needs to make sure that he is helping Lex Luthor.
Yeah, that he trusts the math. Is what he's told. Is calculations. It's calculations that he should continue to follow Lex, but that in the end he's going to disappoint and alienate his friends and family.
So we know Branny. Do you think that we might get maybe a sacrifice play or something, later on down the line of this season?
From the way it seems at the very end, Brainy is throughout this episode, and I mean, for the most part, he's very remorseful for working with Lex and lying to his friends. So he's like that this whole episode, but then he, at the end, when he's trying to take Obsidian off of the failsafe off the grid and everything, he finds out that Lex set it up so that it wouldn't, that it couldn't be taken off the failsafe. So he was very, he definitely was disappointed. He's not going to, I don't think he's going to continue to trust Lex. Lex will continue to push the boundaries of what Lex can get away with, for putting people in danger. Because he used the excuse that, Supergirl will take care of it. Like, is Lex putting his trust in Supergirl that she'll be the hero she is and stop whatever's happening, so that way, whatever Lex had put into motion that could potentially endanger people will not happen. I mean, I doubt Lex is putting his trust in her like that. I doubt it. He's doing what he is doing, and then just using Supergirl as, a loophole. Well, she took care of it. She stopped it from happening. So, but if it happened, oh well. I think that will only work so long on Brainy. I mean, we are talking about the CW here, so I don't know.
It'll only work so long at CW time.
Yeah, so CW time might be, the penultimate episode. We're in the 14th episode. Did this season get shortened to 20 episodes?
I saw that report, and that was like a week before this, last week, that it was being reported it was going to be shortened. and then I think it kind of got lost in the shuffle with everything else.
Yeah.
So with shutting down production, I haven't seen anything more on it, and with production shutting down, they all might get shortened, which might end up being for the better. Just because certain storylines, Brian and I talked about just sometimes certain storylines they drag on too long, and that maybe like an 18 episode story arc could be the better way to go. It gives your season enough room to breathe, to have fun, to not be so tight like some of these 10 episode and 13 episode seasons, but you don't have as much dragging and filler when you do 22, 23 episode seasons. So
yeah, well, I've been of the opinion where these 20 plus episode seasons, there's too much filler and there's too much dramatic irony. They'll have these heroes and their friends learn a lesson, but then either everybody's got to learn that lesson on their own, or they'll keep secrets, and then they're like, oh well, I shouldn't keep secrets, da 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 da, and then there's an excuse for them to keep secrets again, and then they're like, I shouldn't keep secrets, and so they just keep rehashing the same thing over and over again, just for dramatic irony's sake, and so I like having more episodes to be able to watch, but I think that they should really develop it down to a front half story arc and a back half story arc.
Yes, and that's
use the front half to build the second half, but develop a front half one that will have a conclusion, and then have a larger one in the second half.
Exactly. I was going to reference, I remember Once Upon a Time, I believe it was season 3, their first half was like a story arc. It was almost like a season into itself, and then their second half there was threads that carried over, but it was like a new arc, and it just invigorated the story, because that show can get bogged down with retcon and change. I mean, holy crap, is it just the nature of that will make your head hurt of just trying to keep up with who, what, when, where. So, and then of course we talked about how Gotham did these mini episode arcs with a villain, where you would do the Mad Hatter had his arc, Mr. Freeze, they would promote it as the cold is coming, or the ogre. And they were a handful of episodes, not this single episode where this big villain, this known villain who could be a problem, is a problem for a single episode, and then is just, that's it, taken care of at the end of this episode. You got a villain who could be this potential threat, and you build up this 2, 3, 4, 5 episode arc for this single villain, and the villain in a couple episodes comes out on top. Build the actual drama, not dramatic irony. Build the drama, and then have them be able to take them out. You be able to get yourself a few good villains in a season, as opposed to trying to fill in this villain of the week scenario. That's I was going to say, I really liked The Flash so far this season, with the fact they did blood work up front and just basically gave him the arc. I think he was a really dark, creepy villain, and I don't want him to return.
Right.
Because that's, like I said, that's the show that I watch with my family and my kids, and they were legit creeped out by blood work. And
yeah, his zombies and stuff. My kids were like, what are the zombies doing here?
But I liked that was the front half of Flash. It was a villain, a major villain, overarching, and then it was done. And now we're into something else. And the same thing, jumping to Batwoman. is I feel like they've really mishandled and drug the Alice story on too much.
Yeah.
I feel like it could have been tighter, and they could have left an opening to bring her back, but I feel like they've just drung this on, and I won't go into detail since you're not all caught up. But yeah, I feel like with what you're saying, and then with Supergirl, like I was hoping that Leviathan was done pre-crisis, and that when we got back post-crisis, it was going to be different, because even this episode proves like they're going back on things. Like, it was cool that Andrea had not used her medallion, but this episode ends where she has the medallion and turns into the Shadow. So,
well, what's cool before that is she travels through the Shadow. She's locked in a cell, and she travels through her shadow to be able to escape and get to Obsidian. And Brainy, who let you out, who released you, and but she instantly traveled through a shadow. So I hope it's going to be yeah, I mean, that was cool. It was cool because before it was because of the medallion, and then they told her that she had this power inside of her all along, that it wasn't the medallion. So she used the power first, and then she grabs the medallion, and then she becomes this smoky, shadowy thing.
Don't pull on them.
What?
I'm just yelling.
Oh, talking. Okay.
She's pulling on my comics, like bending them, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
So, can I just take a moment here to tell you? She has a flashlight, and she's like going through my comics, like they're out, like looking at all this stuff.
Yeah. So.
No, but you're right. I mean, it's cool, like, that she had the power inside of her, which I wish they would just, maybe if they just hadn't had her with the medallion at the end. You know what I'm saying? Like, to where we just left it at, it's her. But
yeah, it was a useful thing to pull out the name again, because as we discussed previously, after I found out that Andrea Rojas was on. Rojas was on Smallville in the Vengeance episode, that her character's name in the comics was Akrata.
Mm-hmm. I can't believe that one slipped through us. We're getting old, James. We're getting old and slow. But
yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of episodes of Smallville. Seen them a bunch of times, but we're also watching, how many 5 shows with near 20 plus episodes. We're watching like 100 episodes a year of new shows. So
yes,
things are bound to slip through the cracks. You're talking about comics and stuff. Like, real quick, I was going through some of my issues and stuff, and my horror cover for one of my deceased books has got a bend in the corner, and I'm disappointed. I'm sad. And I ordered, because my trip got canceled to Columbus, and so I bought. I was going to buy a couple of trades, the first 2 trades of Batman Superman from the New 52, and they weren't. And they had 2 and 3. So I bought those, and those were just sitting there waiting for me to get into them. I bought volume 1 off Amazon, and it came in the mail, and I opened it up, and on the spine side, like, there was a big old dent. They had bent and kind of crushed the spine side. I was like, you guys suck. That's what you get but that's the risk you run when you order things online and it goes through shipping. There's so many people handling it and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's a trade. It's not like an issue like this bent and dented corner of my deceased number 5 with the Curse of La Lorna on the front.
I love those. Yeah,
I buy all the horror and I buy all the horror variants. So because I missed out on the first one, The It cover with Joker. I missed out on that. I found it at the new shop that opened up the road from me. I found it up there, and like the issue was like double cover price. It was like $8 or whatever. But since it was the only horror variant I didn't have, and it was really the best one, I bought it.
I like variant covers sometimes because they're just better looking. Like I loved when DC did their covers where they just did movie posters. I'm looking at the DC's covers now.
Yeah, so
looks.
Right. I bought the horror variants on those. Unkillables, I'm buying the horror variants or the movie variants on those. So otherwise, I typically just go for the standard cover. Because if I start paying an extra $1 for cardstock on every book I buy, then it's just going to be a lot more money.
Well, that was like when they did the...
it needs to be something special.
I went to my pull and they did the lenticular covers for the villains books.
Yeah.
When they did the big villains. So I got 4 books with these lenticular covers that are each an extra $1, and I'm like, if I just get the regular book, I can buy another book. So I traded the covers and I switched them out from the pull, and instead of getting 4 comics, I got 5 comics. Because after a while, I don't know, the covers. Like my shop now is keeping some of the variant covers and like the standard. I don't know if you call them the standard variants. Like Superman, I think. Is it not 18? I think 19 or... Yeah, Superman 19, I have the variant cover on, and the recent issue of Shazam, I have the variant cover. And I like the variant covers. They're simple, they're nice. More recently, I think with DC with their standard covers have kind of gone back to, it feels a little bit more like the old comics where they'll actually have like words on the cover. But we digress. Like always.
Yeah, speaking of pull lists, real quick, when I went in to pick up my books on Friday, I told my comic guy, I said, Ed, I said, put 3 Jokers on my pull list. It's like, I'm not playing around and it not be here.
Yep. I've had 3 Jokers on my pull list since it was announced, and I always make sure it's still there.
Put it on there.
I'm like, you guys screwed up when Batman Damned came out, and I didn't get the Batwing book, so I had to wait till the collective issue came out and buy the whole thing, because he's like, oh, I'll get you on a second printing. They never did it.
They never did a second printing
of the first issue because of the whole Batwing thing.
Yeah.
But anyways, jump back.
Yeah, let's complain about. Let's go back to that. Let's complain about something adult in an adult book.
Right. It's like watching a rated R movie and being mad because they said the F word and there's violence.
I know, right?
Jumping back, Lex and Lena test their obsidian with the guy whose name escapes me right now, who helped Lex in prison last season.
Steve, I think.
We see that he has a lot of repressed anger from his life. Not only does Lena cure the bully that was picking on him, but then he lashes out because of his pent-up anger, and then Lena treats him with obsidian. So these prison tests show her that what the technology can do. The one thing that I'm trying to figure out, that I'm trying to see if I had missed something, does Lex know that Gemma is Leviathan? Because he talks to her in a way that seems like he does, but I'm not sure if he does. Because Lex's whole big thing has been about stopping Leviathan.
He does. From pictures that him and Brainy had dug up or whatever. Okay, that she's been around for a long time.
I thought I had remembered something, but then I was like, just with these time gaps and everything and just life being busy right now, I was like, maybe I missed a detail. But okay, that makes sense. I remember that now. I don't plan to be an expert like I used to be on stuff because I have kids now. Used to, I could quote you Supernatural or Smallville like it was the Bible. I can't even quote the Bible like the Bible anymore. I could quote it like Shakespeare, but I can't do any of that anymore just because I don't watch it as much as I used to on repeat. If I'm watching something, I get to enjoy it, and then maybe I'm up for an episode of Paw Patrol or Lion Guard next. Got to keep the kiddos happy. But I have this quote from Jania about Andrea, and I quote, "She's a giant pain in the butt." Jania on Andrea. End quote. Because I'm just sitting there her character's getting into that annoying realm. And Jania's like, yeah, she's a giant pain in the butt.
Nice.
And then, continue with the wisdom of Jania here. We were talking about, I asked, does Kara need a love interest with where she's going to go with William? And I'm like, I don't know. Do we always need love interest? And she goes, I like him. She goes, I like William. She says they look like the opposite inverse of Superman and Lois. And I was like, all right, Jania, I'm putting that in here. That's a good quote. And then I said, wouldn't it be awesome if they turned William into Doomsday?
Nice.
She's like, shut up, Tyler.
That would be funny.
He's like, I get to do this again? Yes. Multiverse,
right.
Man. Multiverse. And then the other thing was they defeat the guy, Todd's wife, okay, with Dreamer, who just shows up out of nowhere. That was just kind of awkward. Did you think? It was just she shows up and is like, bing, and I was just kind of like,
well, she's in Catco. She's in Obsidian.
I know. But I mean, she has not been anywhere in the episode. She just shows up, saves the day. I mean, it was kind of cool, but I was just like, oh yeah, she's here.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool just to see how, the different alien powers work differently against each other. Jean's were ineffective against her and her weaponized gauntlets, and even so was Kara. Was ineffective against her weaponized gauntlets, but Dreamer's powers were able to stop and deflect it, and
it was interesting. I mean, I thought it was cool just because it was one of those. It's almost one of those things she's there, but you forget, and then she drops it like it's hot and shows up.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, so that's The Bodyguard. It was one of those episodes that, like I said, on paper I think works. I think, like you brought up, the theme about Todd is really strong, but I wish that had been more of the forefront and not some of these other little things. I don't know. I just feel like it was kind of weak in execution.
It's still a lot going on. It's a large cast, so everybody's doing something. I mean, Lena's doing her own thing. She needs to interact with the prisoners and Lex. Lex is doing what he's doing. He needs to interact with Lena, Gemma, and Brainy, and Supergirl. Supergirl's doing her thing. She's got to be this bodyguard. She's got to go between Lex and the DEO and Andrea. And John and Alex and John are doing their thing. They've got to contact Brainy. They've got to do their own thing. I mean, it's a large cast. So, just the time devoted to one aspect of a story or the other. I mean, it can seem short. I think it was fairly well balanced. I just think some of the other things were a little less interesting, a little more filler and build up. Whereas what actually happened, what meant something for this episode was a small portion of the episode, whereas a larger portion of the episode was just that build up to continue moving the larger narrative.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that in itself right there will detract from the episode.
You're right. I am. Excuse me. I am not against what you're saying here.
So it's just part of what we were talking about of them building up so much, filling in so much, putting in so much filler and so much dramatic irony to stretch a story across a 20 episode season. Whereas one episode could be more focused on driving the story forward. Even if you've got that villain for 3, 4, 5 episodes, you've got that villain for a few episodes, and that's the focus on a couple episodes. And then in the middle there, they're kind of at a loss, and they take a step back from that, and the episode that you see next kind of drives the larger plot moving forward, and then it comes back, and it goes back to that person for another episode or two, and then they take them down, and then the next episode drives the narrative. You know what I mean? They're just trying to sprinkle it and drag it out for so long, as opposed to creating a large or overall narrative.
I mean, Jenny and I were talking about just with like how contracts and stuff work with actors and stuff, like in production schedules.
Yeah.
How sometimes I just wish that they wouldn't tell us so much of like this person's leaving the show or this person's coming on the show, and they'd just surprise us. Because like, wasn't Carlos supposed to be leaving Flash? And they've done 2 things so far that kind of set up his departure, but he's still there. So I don't know. It's just kind of been weird. But let's jump into comics. We're going to just kind of go over just kind of what's been going on with Superman issue 20 and 21. Because like one of my big things is why I wanted to say this is, you were reading Young Justice.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm trying to figure out, and I'll bring in what Phil said when I post this to him, is supposedly Rebirth, like, reignited everything and kind of condensed down and brought everything that happened to Superman back. And we're kind of having this similar Rebirth, like the scene in Rebirth where Barry pulls Wally out of the Speed Force and remembers original Wally West.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's kind of what happened with Connor, because in the newest issue of Superman, he sees Connor introduces himself, and they're just kind of like, okay. And Superman even acts like he doesn't recognize Tim Drake. And I was like, wait, what? Like, how does Superman not recognize Tim Drake? And how does he have no, knowledge of Connor? So it's, like, very confusing of where Connor's Superboy is fitting into this.
That was an action, wasn't it?
No, that was an action, yes.
Yeah, because 20 and 21 was Mongol.
Yeah, I wanted you to do both. My bad. But no,
okay.
The Connor thing laying on my brain.
I need to find my action. I don't have my action right here with me.
It's okay. It's just that was my piece with that. And Phil just basically said, and which is so unusual for Phil, he's like, I'm not sure. Maybe it was something with Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah.
And because I'm like, yeah, you're kind of right, because if all of Superman's history was supposed to be restored, like, there should be some remnants of Connor. Now,
also, should there be remnants of Connor pre New 52, or does pre New 52 Connor merge with New 52 Connor?
Right, exactly. And I feel like,
because I'm not sure whatever happens in New 52 Connor. I don't know what happened to him.
I don't remember, because his thing got really, after they fought. I followed kind of Superboy and New 52 for a while, and Superboy is one of those very convoluted characters, much like Supergirl is, where it's Kara, Kara, and then they had the Matrix thing.
Yeah.
But on the other
right
side,
now, right now on DC Universe, I'm reading. I'm almost done with New 52 Superman. I was gonna finish reading New 52 Action, and then I'm reading Batman Superman, and I'm gonna read Superman Wonder Woman.
I liked.
I also want to do Supergirl and Superboy New 52, and just kind of see how it all. Because whenever I run into a storyline, like I cover all the books in the storyline, so I'll jump into, say, like towards the end here of Superman, there's Savage Dawn that goes across Action and Superman Wonder Woman and a number of other books, and so I got to jump into the run and read like episode or issue 26 of one run, where I'm on issue 48 of another. And so, sorry, hand stretch. So I'll jump back and forth and read the entire story, so I'm not missing pieces like, what are they talking about here? It says, see this issue. So I'll read all those. Same thing with Hell. I went through all of those issues back and forth for Superman, Superboy, and Supergirl and Action, and I read through all of those issue by issue. So, but I'm reading basically one run and then everything to a storyline, and then another, then I'm going to start on another run, and I'll just skip those issues when I get there.
Hey, it's Solomon. Solomon's away. Hi, Solomon.
Hey, Solo.
But okay, so back to the Superman comics. Like,
yes,
so they're dealing with the thing with the United Planets, and Lex, and we suppose it's Lex is like has this war against Superman because he has a video of Superman basically proclaiming himself, as they're referring to as King of the Earth, where he's trying to help unite the planets.
So was it Lex? I mean, I assume it could be.
And that's what I assume too, but we don't know for sure yet.
Yeah, they don't say who gave them because they send a video to the Daily Star of Superman saying that he will speak for Earth in these matters when it comes to the United Planets. So, like, that's literally his quote, "I will speak for Earth in these matters." And they, of course, the media, they go off to say Superman's calling himself the King of Earth now. Whereas one of the guys here on the next page says, I mean, he is the only one of us who can get out there, right? So why not him?
Exactly, and I just think it's going to be such an interesting, because Superman's an off-world. He's fighting Mongol, who's trying to destroy the idea of the United Planets, and
which I must say that was a good story over these two issues.
Yes, I agree. That's why I want to
Mongol's motivations.
I think it's been like with Clark coming out with his identity, and because we basically have Lois, who is, how she put, like, attacked by another reporter about this video, and now, like, she even says, Clark, this is something you tell your wife. But he hasn't been able to get back and talk to her, about everything as much, And he's Superman. And, it's one of those things, it comes from a place of innocence of him trying to make peace for the galaxy and the world. But yet it's going to get twisted back on him as it, all the people are like, oh, is he King of the Earth? So he's trying to unite the galaxy in a way of protecting everyone and creating peace. But humans are going to back and create problems because they're going to be like, well, he hasn't had a chance to defend himself, and basically, well, we can appoint a representative, an Earth representative, for this. It was a spur of the moment thing of him trying to create a unified peace amongst all these planets, but it's going to backfire. And Lois has the line of, "I need a lawyer. I need all the lawyers." And,
well, leave it to people to go and twist it around and be like, he's saying he's ruling Earth and stuff like that, when, he's out there trying to create peace among all of these planets and all of these races across the galaxy, so that way there are less threats to the galaxy, to each world, to Earth. He's generating peace between all these races, so that way there are no wars between, so that they don't bring intergalactic wars to Earth. But
exactly,
that's something that people won't see.
It comes from a place of innocence. It comes from a place of innocence and him just trying to help. And like you said, they're going to twist it around. And I feel like this
is almost like a commentary of media today, twisting good intentions to be something evil.
Yes. And, we won't get into common media, what's going on right now. But yes, exactly. The whole idea is
a whole nother thing.
Is just the fact that, we have people who then get offended just because you said something. And like he tried to do something out of a noble sense and trying to protect people, protect the planet from all this. And they're going to try to turn it back on him.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things where you have people who want Superman to do more, and when he tries, they want him. They're against him, and then now he's at the same time he's no longer Clark Kent. Like, he no longer has that secret identity anymore. So he's completely out. And we're going to see how that works out for him.
Yeah, I mean, just like you said, like offended by something he said. Like, he didn't say anything bad. He didn't say anything offensive about anything, but still, it's the way that somebody is going to take it and twist it for their own means, for their own way of thinking,
we've had a lot of people who've come out and said that they didn't like Bendis's writing right now, but I feel like this is an interesting story. I feel like it's still too slow. His writing, I think, is still too slow, but it's definitely more interesting.
Well, it started good. But it was slow, and then it took a huge dip, and then we were all concerned about this storyline, because they just did it 4 years ago, in a completely different way, but they did it 4 years ago, which actually I just read, and I don't think it was as bad as people had said it was.
The horde root or hoarder.
Yeah.
I thought
hoarder. I just say hoarder.
I figured that's the storyline I thought that we were going to kind of get to see more in Supergirl, because it's all tech based stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I kind of thought was going to come out in Supergirl this season.
Which, if they adapted to a degree, I mean, it would, you can always, if you can always see a story and you can think of another way to adapt it, and in some people's eyes, it will be an improvement, and in others, it won't be. I mean, you can't please.
the death of Superman. I think the film version is the best version of that storyline.
Yeah.
I think it works so much better than the comics.
Yeah. I mean, and just on that line, I like that they've been putting those stories, these major moment stories, these major event stories in continuity for the animated universe. It allows them to change them. It allows them to adapt them. It becomes part of the continuity. There are certain things here or there that maybe they shouldn't have changed the way they did, like in Hush. But you know what? I loved it. I'll roll with it. I mean, like I said, some people liked it more than me. Some people liked it less. But I like that they are doing that they are adapting these events and stuff like that. Like, I would love to see them adapt a Nightfall storyline into an animated feature and put it in continuity. You know what I mean?
I would like to see that. I think that would be an awesome.
I like the animated continuity, and I like the way that it's connected. I like the way that they're using and adapting these storylines. I'm not one of those people, I've said it before, I'm not one of those people who wants to see the exact thing off of the page on screen. I don't want to see exactly word for word. I want to see someone else's interpretation, someone else's adaptation. Be true to what the original was, but make it your own way. Make it what you would think needs to be improved. It's like, you're not going to please everybody. Just do a good job and be true to what came before.
You're right.
I like creative freedoms. Whether I love them or hate them, I like creative freedoms. I don't want to see the exact same thing over and over and over again. I just don't. Because what's the point?
Right.
I can go back to the original. The original is never going to disappear. I can always go back to the original. So that's just part of the toxicity of fandom these days.
That's a good place to end it right there.
All right.
That's a great way. You're exactly right. Like, we want to see stories, but we don't want to see it changed up. I think sometimes it's surprising. The Leviathan that we're getting now is nothing like the Leviathan we were just recently introduced in the comics. So
yeah, the Leviathan on Supergirl sees alien races. What's their end game? We don't even know yet. The Leviathan in the comics, it's Leviathan. It's Mark Shaw, a manhunter. I don't know if it has much to do with the Green Lantern manhunters. I'm not sure. I think there's a similarity to them. The rod they use and things like that. But those were robots created before the Green Lantern Corps. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what connection lies there. I don't know who Mark Shaw is. So,
me neither. That's why it was so
different. And and they need to, exactly like you said, it needs to fit the world and the medium that they are using. Could they tell the story better? Could they tell the story better with Leviathan instead of, seeding it so long and spreading it out so thin over so long? Sure. But the version of it needs to fit and work within the confines of the medium and the story that they're telling.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But so that's, that was this week's episode in our comics countdown. I have a over anxious little Supergirl here.
Yeah, I read my Supergirl. I haven't read I haven't read this week's Young Justice yet, so.
Yeah, me neither. And I'm hopefully going to try to. But,
so hopefully,
right,
as we continue forward, we'll seed in some more Superman and action and Young Justice, and unfortunately, Supergirl will end with 42. So, yeah, we won't have her moving forward, but we'll seed some more Kryptonian comics as we go.
I think, yes, I could say more, but we'll hold off on that until we see more. But just remember, dear listeners.
Look up in the sky.
Look up in the sky.
Look in the sky.